There is a sixth dimension beyond that which is known to man. A multiverse as vast as eternity, as timeless as the Infinity Gems. It is the middle ground between the big two and the indie publishers, between sci-fi and mysticism, and it lies between the pages of the reader's imagination. At the summit of entertainment, the dimension of comics, where a humble service is held. We call this service the Gospel of Comics. There is a
Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host, the Church of Failure, and with me as always is my trusty co-host, Ayrton McCartney. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thank you for actually asking the question this time instead of yesterday.
I was just trying to throw you a curveball. Anyway, with us on stream today in the digital studio, as I have dubbed it, we have Jason from Knuckle Supper Studios, which, might I just intro into saying, is a fantastic name for an imprint.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Hey, anytime, my friend. Jason is running the Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign that we'll pull up in just a little bit here. We'll find some links down in the description for Tales from Neroesville. And I think the first question that I want to ask after I ask you to introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit about you, what are you? I want to ask about the name of Neroesville after you introduce yourself. So just be thinking on that.
Okay. Jason Meadows, I'm the founder of Knuckle Supper Studios. Tales from Neroesville is a book I've been kicking around for literally probably close to 20 years. It all started with one hero, Happy Jack, who was the first hero I created in this universe. And I knew from the start that I would get bored writing the same character over and over for every issue, so that's why I took the Astro City approach with my book, and I was just trying to come up with a name for the town they would live in. And one day I just kind of had this inspiration, this vision of like pulling into this big city and those big signs that they have outside that say, you know, welcome to whatever town.
Right.
I envisioned welcome to Neroesville, but someone had spray painted an H over the N because of the high population of superpowered beings in the city.
Okay, so it's Tales from Heroesville.
Right.
Okay, I like it. That works. Were you gonna say something, Aaron?
Not quite yet.
Okay. You're chopping in and out. I can't tell. You're calling in from your trophy tin can. We make the joke that he's calling in from a rotary telephone, and yeah. I'm starting to believe it more and more after every show.
But potato on a string.
That's right.
Yeah. Everybody's got epic gimmick.
I'll go ahead and pull that up if the link will work. There we go. Now we're cooking with fire. I'll go ahead and get that pulled up on the screen here. Probably help if I did a little bit of a screen share, wouldn't it?
That'd be nice.
There we go. But yeah, I've got it pulled up here. It seems like there's 25 days left on the campaign, so still a decent amount of time. You are at 713 of your $2,500 flexible goal, which is respectable. And it is offering not one, not two, but three full-length regular comic books. Cat Swatters, as Ethan Van Sciver calls them. Is that correct? Did we lose you, buddy? I think we may have lost him. We checked the Skype call. Yep, he's gone. Nope, he's still there. Just quiet. No, he was having some internet issues.
Hold on to your butts, folks.
So while we wait on that, and jump back in whenever you can if you can hear me, Jason. But while we wait on that, I'll go ahead and kind of look through this Indiegogo campaign here.
Yep.
First off, Skype crashed on him. Okay, I just got the message. Let me
Okay.
respond real quick. You should be able to jump back in the call. Be able. Doing it live, folks. Doing it live! Why don't you talk for a minute, Ayrton? Do your co-host job.
All right. So I also read through those review copies that were sent. It was a lot of fun. It was kind of hard at first. First couple pages, I didn't know how I felt about it, but the story started to pick up some steam. The characters got defined, and it was a lot.
You are roboting
The
something
humor a
awful.
lot.
I'm gonna have to cut you off. You're roboting terrible. You should cycle something. Everything hates us tonight, folks. We're having a great Sunday evening.
Apparently,
So I'm just
it's
gonna
always Sunday.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute the desktop audio real quick and let Ayrton sort that out, and let Jason hopefully make an attempt to come back. And I guess I'll just go through the overview here. Tales from Neroesville is a book with no singular star. The city itself serves as the backdrop for our entire universe, with the different stars and story types in each arc. Obviously, from the get-go, anybody familiar with Astro City, and we'll talk to Jason about this when he jumps back in. Okay, he's back. So let me unmute the Skype here. Obviously, just from that first sentence, anybody familiar with Astro City is going to draw kind of a comparison there. So, is it safe to say that that was kind of a fair inspiration for this archetype of story?
Yeah, I mean, I was a fan of Astro City when it first came out. Was I was raised on indie comics, like the '80s and '90s indie comics were my bread and butter. That's what I really dug into. And then when Astro City came out, I just liked the approach because there was different stories every few arcs or every few issues and different characters, and that just kind of spoke to me. And that was the approach I decided to take.
I actually really respect that, because I got the same vibe from Astro City. Say what you will about Kurt Busiek and his choices of quote unquote allegiance in the comics industry right now.
Yeah.
But Astro City was a phenomenal story when it first started out. I haven't really kept up with it recently, but I can say with full gusto that the first 5 to 6 volumes of Astro City were nothing to shake a stick at. They were really so. Just because you're using that trope, I wouldn't say that you were knocking off that idea. That idea has been around as long as Marvel and DC themselves. I mean, Marvel and DC hold themselves out as sharing a universe. The
Right.
universe is the biggest character in any Marvel and DC book you read, at least up to a certain point. If you're a longtime comic fan, you can see overlapping story arcs in every title in certain points. So to say
Right,
that,
and
go ahead.
if I had the money to be able to pay creators and publish multiple books, I would do multiple titles with individual characters. But this is the way that I'm going to do it, because like those first 2 issues, that's my Blue Beetle Booster Gold from the '80s Justice League. The next
Right.
one is kind of like a Gotham Tales, kind of Tales to whatever kind of scary story. The third
Yeah.
issue is the fourth issue is almost like a Great Lakes Avengers kind of story. Issues 5 and 6 is my Teen Titans. So not every story is going to fit with one character. Like, you can't just pluck Spider-Man and throw him in a Batman story and have it jive,
Well, I don't know. They've
Yeah.
done it once or twice. You have to have Carnage and Joker there to mix it up a little bit. But
Yeah.
no, I respect that. I didn't mean to infer by any means. I wanted to point out the similarities there. Issues 1 and 2, which the title Lightning Balls of the series, that's fantastic. Is a buddy flick a la Blue Beetle Booster Gold, like you just said, circa 1987. Fantastic year for those in the chat.
Yeah.
lovable losers trying to make a name for themselves save the day. Can they do it? Spoiler alert, probably not. And that is a fantastic description without spoiling anything in the story, actually. And I would say, having read that, that is a great combination. You were kind enough to send us some review copies. We're not going to flip through them on air or anything because, I'm going to get into it when we get into your tiers here, but there is no reason that anybody who's interested in this should not be looking to at least back it digitally. You look at any other campaign out there and you tell me you can get 60 pages plus shipped to your door for $11, and I'll call you a liar, sir.
Yeah. I mean, the first 3 issues are 64 pages. We've already hit the first stretch goal, which I think added a 4-page short, and now we're $37, I think, away from the next stretch goal. I'm going to add another 5-page short, and if we can make it to the next stretch goal, I'm going to add another 10-page short.
Okay.
That was just, there was a few approaches I wanted to take that differentiate my books from others on Indiegogo.
Right.
And I hear a lot of people complaining about the wait. They back something, the campaign ends, and 4, 6, 8 months later, they still don't have the books.
Right.
I made sure my books were completely done, along with a bunch of shorts. Because sometimes when I write a story, it's not going to maintain an entire issue, and I'm not just going to throw a bunch of filler pages in. So
Right.
I've got a whole bunch of shorts going into this campaign. I think I had 140 pages of completed artwork done.
Okay.
So I wanted to make sure everything was done. When the campaign does end, I'm going to have to throw like some advertisements and thank you pages in, and then it goes to print. There's no... Like I said, this auction, this campaign isn't funding the creation of these books. It's funding the creation of the books for the next campaign.
Okay. And, I completely respect that. That's a fantastic model. You put the work in before you started asking for money. And not as a slight to anybody else who is working on ongoing with the book. By no means is that a slight. I just think it's a very interesting way to do it. And I also understand both sides of it, because some people need to be able to afford to sit down and create the stuff as it is. You just happen to be in a position where you could have this material done before these comics went to print or went to funding. And that sets you up to be able to pay for the next creation on this crowdfund, and so on and so forth. And that's an admirable, way to look at it and do it. So issue 3 is the issue that's being offered, as well as 1 and 2. It is it's a one shot. I'm guessing it's not part of a 2-part series, or is that a hook to get people to come back for the next one?
No, that was just a one shot, and it's kind of like you see those people who are out, generally younger guys who are out and don't respect anyone around them and do whatever they want, and you always hope that they'll get what's coming to them. So,
right.
With a little bit of 80s flair for the extreme violence and the over-the-top dialogue, I made sure that they got what was coming to them.
Yeah. Well, it definitely worked. There was an art shift, and I think that we talked about that a little bit off air. I always say that you take the good with the jarring, and not to say that it was bad. The art was still miles above what you'd get out of a Marvel comic today. I know that's a low bar to set, but don't take it as an insult.
Yeah.
But the art shift kind of jarred a little bit in between the 2 issues, but once you realize that this is almost a complete shift to another character, another setting, called a Day at the Beach, and it does definitely work. I do like the first 2 issues better, but I think that's because I like the characters introduced in that issue better. But I don't think that I would not read anything with the characters introduced in issue 3. So
yeah, I think 1 and 2 probably has a wider appeal, especially with Lightning Dog and Airball, just because there's so much fun playing off of each other.
Right.
Issue 3, I had a different artist on that who I really like. He's kind of a local guy to me. Issue
Right.
4, issue 4 is completely done as well. I just decided to offer 3 issues instead of 4, so I had one in the can for the next one already. Issue 5 is being drawn right now.
Okay.
But that's like with my approach for different genres and different stories and different characters. That's one of the fun things is now when I write a script, now I have the vision in my head of what this story is, so I can go out and I can search for a specific artist that I think is going to draw that story the best. So that's just fun for me.
When you get 10 to 20 issues in the can, I'd love to see what the Bible for this shared universe looks like. I can just imagine like sticky notes hanging out of it, and red ink crossing out black ink, crossing out blue ink.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm old, and I write my scripts in tablets. Like I probably got 20 spiral bound tablets here.
Yeah.
So I still handwrite all my scripts before going to the computer and typing them in.
Wait, you can handwrite stuff?
You can. Nobody can read it but me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I've broken
yeah.
just about every bone in my right hand, so I'm the only one that can decipher my hieroglyphics.
Oh, I mean you could be a coder for the U.S. military. You could be sending code there, train someone to interpret your scribble.
Yeah, like the Wind Talkers.
I think Doug TeNapel said something on a live stream about his process was note cards. He would plot everything out in note cards, then stick them to the wall and figure out where there were gaps that he needed to fill in and rearrange the sequences as they made sense. But he would put down all of it. So everybody has their own process. You could even take it a step further and do everything on a typewriter.
Yeah.
With a broken E key, so you have to use a 3.
Yeah, if you look at one of my notebooks, you'll be reading along, and then you'll get to a section that has a big circle around it and an arrow pointing to the top, and it says insert before page 6, and then you'll get to another part, and it'll say pick up where you left off, and so I'm constantly rearranging.
Right.
Issue 4 is like the story begins the book begins at the end of the story, and then it's all kind of told in flashbacks all throughout until you get to the end and the reveal. So, and that wasn't originally how I had planned it out, but once I started typing it in, I realized it worked out better that way. It was actually funnier that way.
Well, no, I have to read that now because those are some of my favorite comic books where you see basically right before the end of the story on page 1, and then you go back to like 4 hours earlier and everything's fine. And you're like, oh God, how did this happen?
Yeah, and in the reviewer copies that I sent you, there's also issue 1 of Hero and the Lamb, which is a 3-issue kind of mini series that I'm working on, and I'm doing everything on that from writing, pencils, inks, colors, letters. I do everything myself on that.
Right.
And I think I'm just gonna throw like 1 issue of that in with the next 3 campaigns. But that story changed so much from when I came up with the initial idea to where I finished the 3rd issue script. It had gone through so many revisions, so many changes, because as you're writing, you come up with all these ideas of how you can change stuff and, make it a little deeper and rather than just a straight read through.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and then as a 4th on the 4th campaign, you could sell them as a perk alone to fund the next books. You could do those 3 as a bundle together on the 4th campaign once people have had the opportunity to collect them.
Yeah.
And I really liked that Hero and the Lamb thing. I thought that was probably my favorite out of all the stuff you wrote that you sent over to us.
Oh, did you get to read that one?
Yeah, I got to flip through it before the show. I didn't get to read all of it.
Yeah, as a general principle, I only read the first 3 to begin with. After the show, I'll read the other 2, but I didn't want to be talking about those since they're not included in the campaign, and I know my brain. So if I knew anything about them, I would start talking about it, and it would just not work out well. And people might want that, and you'd be like, well, maybe I could add it, and it would just be too much.
Yeah. The problem is, I'm doing everything myself, so like that first issue literally took me a year to complete. So I'm already working on the second issue of that. So that's why I don't draw anything. I am a decent artist. The pinup that is in the one of the perks, I drew that, but I am just so ungodly slow that I would never be able to put a book out regularly.
Right. And, that's fair. Not everybody is is made to put out monthly books. We said it last night with Sean Crummell. He does some YouTube stuff over on back issues on his channel. So if you ever want some good just video content, check him out. But we were talking about Ethan Van Sciver, and a lot of people give him flack because he's late on a book. And I'm sorry, but I don't think I've ever backed a campaign that didn't have some issues.
Yeah.
Crowdfunding is still new to everybody. Ethan Van Sciver put one crowdfund together, and he's tried to kind of keep everybody updated, but he's been completely honest. Look, I thought I could draw it faster than I could, but I wanted to take my time with it, and crowdfunding gave me the opportunity to do that, so I'm sorry I'm not sorry.
Yeah, and it's clear he's putting all of his effort to make a beautiful product. Like, he's not going to half-ass it and get it out on time just to get it done.
Why would you want to rush?
Yeah.
And this is his baby. This is something that this is a piece of comics history. I feel like these first few books that are coming out of Comicsgate, they're going to have I feel like they're going to have some value just for the simple fact that they're not going to be mass produced, and people 10, 20 years from now, when the comics industry is either dead or thriving again, then people are going to look back and they're going to see, what was going on in the troubling time. Kind of like 90s books. People go back and buy 90s books now because that was a troubled time for comics. And people want the stories that came out then because you had great stories, but you had predatory distribution practices.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I see it coming back now with the variant covers and all that stuff.
Oh, it's been back. And we'll get back into the campaign. I'm sorry, we derail every 2 seconds if not kept in line.
No, I've got the mind of a goldfish. If I see something shiny, I'm going off course.
But one thing that I always kind of gush on as far as a comic series is Secret Wars 2015 by Hickman and Saad Rabic. But it was a 9-issue series, but it had a total of like 241 tie-ins.
Yeah.
They canceled and I feel like they did the tie-ins correctly at least. I don't think they should have done it to everything at Marvel, but if you're going, I guess go all in.
Yeah.
But you didn't have to read any of them to get the overall story. They all added a little something. Some of them were completely trivial and insignificant, but in the grand scheme of things, those 9 issues were just so well crafted and they sold so well. But while I was buying them, I had to literally ask myself as I was collecting everything, how deep am I going to go? Because there were a dozen variant covers for each issue of the main story. And some of them were like 501 variants.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's buying 500 copies of this book?
Yeah, I'm an Amazing Spider-Man guy. That was the first deep series that I started collecting, and I'm probably about 30 to 40 issues away from a full run.
Ooh,
but when
nice.
When 700 came out with all those variants, and I'm a big Steve Ditko fan, so that was the variant that I really wanted.
Yeah.
But, it jumped up in price. I'm like, I don't even know how many variants there are. Like, I will never be able to get all of those variants.
Well, I mean, I picked up a couple that were cover price or $5 or whatever. I think I paid $10 for one variant cover, and I said never again. Because the interiors are exactly the same. I agree with Peter Simeti on the idea. Variant covers should just be trading cards.
Yeah.
You know, if Marvel, and I hope, one day this makes it across the desk of somebody at Marvel Studios, but I know it won't. If they took a page out of the Panini Press And that's literally the name of a sports card manufacturer for the people at home. If they took a page out of their book, I just realized the joke in the name Panini Press. But if they took a page out of that sports card book and they said, okay, well, we're going to have, blank loaded, prizes in there where every 1,000 packs you can get a piece of original comic page art, for buying these trading cards. Occasionally you'll get like a Todd McFarlane Spider-Man autograph card, a sketch card or something, these packs. And they took that practice and they implemented it, and they started selling cards again, like back in the 90s. They take the same ideas that sports cards are doing. They would make so much money, and they wouldn't be as predatory towards, comic shops. But that's my rant on that. I apologize for going off on that.
I mean, assuming I'm coming through decently enough. Okay. So week issue 3 of Sonata from Image Comics that I've been buying came out.
Yeah.
And there was like 2 different, like in the front of the stack on the shelf, they had like 2 different variant covers. I actually, out of my way, went and pulled just the regular one. I'm like, no, screw this. Sure, they look cool, but just give me the plain comic book. Don't do all this obnoxious shit with it to try and artificially inflate the value of this one book.
I think I've gone into why that's a thing. Basically, Diamond doesn't care about sales to the direct market. They care about sales to the comic shop. So if the comic shop buys them thinking other people will buy them, they don't care if they sit on a shelf. It looks good for them.
Yeah.
And they don't offer returns from comic shops, so they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
If you have 2 buyers on Spider-Man and one of those buyers typically buys everything and the other buyer typically buys half of it, you have to order 2 of everything because you don't know which buyer is going to buy, and you just have to deal with the fact that some of it's going to go unsold.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to it, you've got a little blurb in here about Knuckle Supper Studios is an indie comics publisher that wants to make comics fun again. Remember the 80s indie boom? That's what we want to bring back. Escapism with no morals or PC, BS, etc. jammed down your throat. Entertainment is the goal, and that's what's going to keep you coming back. Good stories, good art, good times. And that seems to be a very common thread through most indie creators, because indie creators are able to latch on to what collectors and fans of the industry have been trying to find for the last almost 10 years now. It almost feels like Civil War was the breaking point for the comic industry, almost verbatim. You've had some shining stars out there, like some stories that were able to be executed with or without political bias that didn't tarnish the industry, but for the most part, the questionable hirings, the fact that editorial is all but absent from the comic industry right now. I think a lot of indie guys are able to tell their stories in a market that's itching for something that's not politically charged or isn't, created by someone who would rather call them a hateful name than sell a comic book.
Yeah, most of the indie creators that I know and I run with were comics fans, first and foremost. That's why we're creating comics. And then you got the big guys pulling in people who weren't comics fans and, they weren't customers. They're in there just to, drive forth an agenda. And when you talk about them, pissing on the history or whatever, they don't care. But like all the guys I know, we all grew up reading the same books. We all grew up with that same passion, and that's what we're trying to recapture. We actually care about putting out good books and not, being smarter than the reader.
Right. Well, excuse me. There is some more info here. It's a lot of what we've already mentioned. We will show some of the art here. You've got Lightning Doug and Airballs.
Where did you come up with the name Lightning Doug? Because that's to be probably the best name for a superhero ever.
Man, I gotta tell you, it is very hard to come up with a name that isn't already used. Like, I'll come up with what I think is a great name for a character. So I go on and Google it, and if it's being used somewhere. So I don't know. I just have stupid thoughts that run through my head throughout the day, and I carry a tablet around with me. And Lightning Doug, for the way this character is, it just seemed like the kind of name he would have chosen for himself.
Yeah.
It made me laugh. It perfectly fits his personality and his character. And
Right.
it's fantastic.
So you've got and Airballs. Let's just be honest. Airballs it's so good. I mean, because it does describe him. He's got floating spheres that hover around him. It's almost like Mr. Terrific's T-spheres.
Yeah.
But he just airballs, and it's just like, how did I end up with this name?
Yeah.
And I think it actually explains that in the book. But they're not the most likely of heroes. They definitely find themselves in some capers. So that's depicted here. Definitely worth picking up so you can figure out how they make it out of that. And then you've got some artwork from. This is the second issue or the third issue here, isn't it?
That's the second issue. That's the
Right,
second part
the
of
second.
Lightning Balls.
Right. So this introduces a few of the other characters. The villain is fantastic. You can't understand a word he's saying because of his mouth is
Trying
covered.
to read that dialogue was obnoxious.
Yeah, someone told me, one of the reviewers suggested that maybe I put the little boxes on the bottom of the panels so I can, so the reader can tell what he's reading or what he's saying. So
I figured it out. It took me a sec.
Yeah, I mean, literally, when I wrote the script, I wrote it out as the dialogue, and then I held my tongue between my forefinger and my thumb and said it, and that's what's on the page.
And this is from issue 3, the day at the beach.
Right. Like I said, the approach with that one was a little more. I don't even know how to describe it. More of like an inner city feel. So like the art also, I wanted to reflect that.
Right, and you can definitely see that. I think I like the villain in this one. He's not even a villain. I think he's just a spirit. He's not necessarily a bad guy per se. He's just it doesn't seem like he has a malicious intent, but he is going after people. So
yeah, he's gonna clean up the boardwalk.
Yeah.
Some of those scenes are brutal too.
Oh yeah, no punches pulled there. So it definitely is a kickback to some of the 80s and 90s. But let's go through the tiers real quick, and then we can find some other things too.
Except there's not a bunch of unnecessary touches over all your characters' costumes.
No.
Yeah, the sand guy needs pouches to hold sand in.
Yes. Exactly.
Featured tier, and by the way, look down below. There are some secret links down below that we have been so graciously offered to promote. So you can get some swag with your comics, or you can get some what was it, the signed print, the sketch, the swag, and the comics.
Yeah. For anyone that's doing reviews on the books or like having me on their live stream, I wanted to have something for people to come on and listen and view. And it's just I say stickers and magnets and buttons. Oh my! So it's just freebies that I'm throwing in.
Right. That's really cool. Considering if you don't spring for the print, which like I said before we started the show, I have several small churches running around. So, but I saw this, and I think it was. I'm going to scroll down and skip a couple real quick. I saw just the comics, and you had a special going on where you were doing just the comics and a sketch or something like that, and that was $11 shipped is what it came out to. And I was like,
Yeah.
"There's no way. I have to see this." And I looked, and lo and behold, it was $11 shipped. And I was like, "Well, I'm just buying this right now. I will waste that money before I wake up tomorrow. So let's just go ahead and put it somewhere useful." But there are lots of ways you can.
Comic prices have gotten insane. Like comic prices have gotten insane. The last time I went to the local comic shop, there was a Deadpool one shot in there that had a $9.99 cover price, and half the damn thing was reprints.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to give readers and backers as much bang for their buck as I could. And in keeping with my love of 80s comics, I'm doing the books on the newsprint to make them very reasonable.
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
Right.
you can get 3 issues delivered to your door for $11, and that's why, I don't know if you guys saw the Bleeding Fool article about Tales from Neroesville being I forget what it was, the greatest bargain on Indiegogo right now.
Yeah. Wow. I do. Yeah, I definitely back that up. But what I was going to say is, there's a lot of ways you guys in the chat can support this, and if you would any way possible, we would definitely appreciate it. But you can obviously share the link out on your social media, your Facebook, your Twitter, whatever. Let everybody know that it's out here. So if you have any comic fans that want to check it out, you can't get 3 issues for $11 at a local comic book store right now. That might get you 2 issues if you drive to get them. But I mean, unless they're Alterna comics, let's do our shill for Peter Samedi real quick.
Yeah.
But Peter Samedi.
And that is how I'm printing them so cheap. I'm doing the partnership with Pete to get them printed on newsprint.
Well, we definitely want to. We absolutely support this campaign, then, guys. That pushed it over the edge. Not that I was questioning it beforehand. But yeah, you can share the link out on your social media, your Facebook, Instagram, all that newfangled stuff. Send it to Snapchat so somebody opens it up thinking it might be boobies. But there's also a $1 anonymous philanthropist tier, where you can just throw a buck at it, say, "Hey, I like what you're doing. I don't want the books, but thanks." There's a credited philanthropist for just another $1. So you put $2 in and get your name printed in the book, and you can probably win some bar bets by saying, "I bet my name's printed in the comic book." And for $3 more, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say, or you could use it as a pickup line.
Yeah.
Just walk up to a girl and be like, "Hey, well, fuck me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure my name's printed in this comic book right here."
But yeah, you can spend $5 and get all 3 issues in digital, which is fantastic. I'm guessing you're sending out CBR files or PDFs that you can load up into a reader.
Right. I was going to do PDF files once the campaign's done and I add everything into it. Then those will go out.
Okay. Then you've got the Just a Comics, like I said, for $6 and $4 shipping. And that's estimated to ship around Christmas time, so you should have it roughly the first of the year if everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, barring any hiccups.
Right. Now, I was going to ask, because you have a flexible goal on the Indiegogo, is this going to be fulfilled regardless of how much it makes?
Yeah, that was another thing I did. Aside from making sure that the books were completely done,
right.
I squirreled enough money so that if I sold 1 copy of the books, I had enough money put aside to print them. So
okay,
yeah, the books are going to be printed and fulfilled no matter what, because it's an ongoing series, and I will be doing a second campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I still want to do comic shows, do the cons and everything, and be able to sell books that way. So yeah, I'm definitely printing and fulfilling no matter what.
Right. Well, I mean, and then there's always the collector aspect of wanting to get the first printings. All you have to do on the second run is just put that little second printing button on the inside, and then you've submitted the people that bought it the first time, and they've got the first copies. So, But you also have a retailer package for anybody with a shop or who wants to get them for their friends. Do you check retailer status, or is this just a retailer labeled package?
It's just a retailer label package, and someone else that was talking to me about the book said that you should have a tier in there with multiple copies. Some people, especially at this price point, like to order multiple copies and hand them out to other
Right.
people.
Right.
And I was like, well, they can order the comic shop retailer and get 3 copies,
Right.
So
And that's something like I was going to say. This is definitely great for like a gift or something like that. If you got somebody, or even if you just like have an organization or something like where the magazines or something on the table, just sometimes it's good to get them out there. Some of the comic books I was introduced to for independent comics were because they were left at a doctor's office or something like that. Now, here's something I was going to...
Your local library. Those are still a thing, believe it or not.
Yeah, here's something I was actually going to say. I'm probably going to need to DM you about this, but you also have a shameless self-promotion. So if you have an upcoming project going on that you want to promote, if you have a YouTube channel, hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yep.
You send in $30 and you get all of the comics as well as a half-page ad for your product.
Yeah, there's, like I said, I run with a bunch of indie creators, and I listen to a bunch of YouTubers, and I've been on a handful of shows. The people that support me and the people that I like, I want to help promote their product as well.
Right.
So yeah, and that's not something I've seen on other campaigns.
No, and it makes perfect sense. And one thing that I think we really need in the artist world, from YouTube, or not YouTube, but from like Twitter artists and Instagram artists and whatnot, is we need somebody, maybe not even a full-on artist, maybe just a graphic designer, to put together some like old school 30s and 40s style advertisements that are just fake ads.
Oh yeah.
that can be
like
used as filler. Yeah,
Yes.
like that are just fake ads that can be used in these old comics. Feel like that would be
cartoon if you're in the chat.
Tom McDenny, Cartoon, Elias, all of you guys. Yeah. Well, let's not bother them right now. We're all working on a project together. Let's just stick to the. You know how I am about getting my projects done, man.
My bad.
But no, I just think that would be interesting. I might could actually even throw a couple together, but it would be kind of fun to put together like some old advertisements, like, I don't know.
Moon boots.
No, man, buy your own symbiote.
Yeah.
Yeah, $9.99 mail in order.
Yeah, like what are those things you used to sprinkle in the water?
What now?
They were just brine shrimp that you used to put in the water. What did they call those things?
Oh,
sea monkeys.
Sea monkeys.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
build your own SpaceX rocket to go to Mars, only $12.95
Plus shipping.
plus shipping. Plutonium rods not included.
Orange face paint, blonde wig, living
Red
toupee.
plastic straws.
I don't know. That's just that's something I saw when I was thinking about the promotion there. But yeah, you've got a great campaign here. Hopefully, next 25 days it'll get fully backed and you can unlock all your stretch goals. Because, like I said, I really liked what I saw, and I really liked the trope that was set up by Astro City. But like I said, I like seeing it done in other ways. So it was actually kind of interesting to see it. My first characterization of it was Astro City and the Tick together. Just because of the way that Lightning Doug is written, it reminded me so much of Arthur.
Yeah.
From the Tick, but Airballs was not the Tick, so.
Yeah. Yeah, Tick was definitely one of my favorite books back in the day when it first came out.
Right.
So yeah.
So I think that actually leads pretty seamlessly into another question. What would you say were some of your like inspirations or just general, you know, your favorite artist growing up. Not necessarily that they inspired this book in particular, but you know, some people that you took. I don't know. You took the drive from, so to speak.
One of my favorite comics back in the day when I was really getting into comics was Cat and Mouse. If you're familiar with that book at all, it was I forget if it was Eclipse or Eternity, but it was written by Roland Mann. It was drawn by Mitch Bird back before he went to DC. And it was just a really good series. I loved that. There was a very short-lived book called Mighty Mites. Before there were chibis, that's how these guys were drawing their comics. They had huge heads and little bodies, and they were rips on other books. They did, it was parodies. It was the one issue was X-Men, one was The Dark Knight, and it was just like the humor just really stuck with me. And I read Boris the Bear, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's a bunch of those kind of books. Those are what really drove me to create. It wasn't, your mainstream. I read X-Men growing up. Like I said, I love Spider-Man, and I'm sure I drew inspiration from some of those stories, but it was the indie approach that really stuck with me for 30 years. So that's what really drove me to do this type of book.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of respect to be said about that. I think I got off track when I was getting to it earlier, but go ahead. Sorry.
Well, there is a book. If you guys, and please, I would like you to back my campaign, but if you've got a couple extra bucks burning a hole in your pocket, there was a book back in, I want to say the late 80s, maybe early 90s, called Liberty Project. Mm-hmm. It was by Kurt Busiek. And tell me if this sounds familiar. It was villains who are incarcerated and were going to earn their freedom by being heroes. Yeah. That was his trial run for Thunderbolts.
Right.
And it was just a great book. I love the writing. I love the art. Like you were saying, old Busiek. I still like and respect his talent. But yeah, I mean, that was definitely a book that stuck with me throughout the years.
I feel like a broken record when I have to say it, but every other episode or so, I have to bring up the fact that as much as people, dislike Mark Waid for his treatment of Richard Meyer, I am also in that camp. I think that he is, a worthless excuse of a comics creator. But there's no denying that he created Irredeemable and several great runs on several, prominent story arcs. So, I have to look at myself and ask myself, okay, am I going to go throw my copies of these books that I actually like in the fire, or am I just going to say, well, the man's an a-hole and doesn't deserve any more of my money, but I've already spent this.
Yeah. Kingdom Come is an amazing, was an amazing book, and it's just such a shame he's such a douchebag.
I'm of the mindset that Kingdom Come with Alex Ross's love child, and they put Mark Waid's name on it to make it sell.
Well, that may be, yeah.
Because if you look at Earth X and Kingdom Come, they're the same book.
Yeah.
So, and both of those, Alex Ross is the common factor there. He just did the story for Earth X, and they didn't let him. I don't think they put him in the story credit for Kingdom Come, but that was his story, just different trappings. But that's just my conspiracy theory. I'll take my tinfoil off for the rest of the show. But
and they're turning the frickin' frogs gay.
It's in the water. The chemicals are in the water. But what I was saying earlier. When Ayrton and I first started doing this show, I had been getting into indie comics for a while, even though I had built up on the mainstream stuff. And when Ayrton started co-hosting the show, he was more of like a Wolverine fan. Like Wolverine, X-Men, what else? Green Lantern.
Fantastic Four.
Yeah, just bigger mainstream names. And I started throwing all these indie books at him. Like, we did a show on Chew. We did a show on Boys. We did a complete read through and, you know, guest spot with the Dead Man's Tone podcast on Lock and Key by Joe Hill.
Yeah.
We did Umbrella Academy, and I just started throwing all these indie books at him, and I've still got more to go. I gave him one earlier to kind of flip through when we were in the air of whether or not you'd be able to make it tonight so that we could go over it, and that was Atomic Robo.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I got an Atomic Robo story, but yeah, I loved Atomic Robo.
So I feel like he and I both have learned that the indie books are really where the creativity and the good storytelling is at. Especially
and the batshit insanity.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I think it was Antonio. It was somebody I was talking to the other day, and they were talking about like why indie books seem to, be quote unquote better. And like for me, with Neroesville, those are my characters. Those are my babies. Like I created them. I'm gonna make sure that they're taken care of and written properly and drawn well. With the mainstream books, you've got guys jumping on and they're not signing long contracts anymore like they used to. You're not going to get a Claremont run on X-Men like you did back in the day. So guys are hopping on. They're telling their cute little story and throwing everything in a blender and then just handing the slurry off to the next guy. Here's what you've got to deal with. So yeah,
I'm not even going to put the toys back in the toy box for you. I'm just going to leave them strewn all over the floor. Good luck.
Yeah, so I think that's why the indie books seem to have so much more heart than the mainstream books.
I had a similar exchange with Clint from Sweetcast and Von Klaus and Eric Weathers when we were talking about all three of their books on a show one night. And I had a couple of drinks, but I got into the whole thing about how, and the same thing with Don Chen. I got into the whole thing where if they're your characters and you can feel the love for that story and that character in the book is infinitely better because of it. You can draw the most beautifully drawn comic book and fill it with drivel of a script, and it's no good. Like, nobody's going to care. You have to have the perfect matching of both. You have to have a story that's actually well thought out and written for people to read, not to send a message, so to speak. I mean, you can always send a message. Right. You can always send a message with your writing, but if you've got to hit people on the head with it, then you're not a good writer. Basically, it's basically the grand scheme of it. But, I've always maintained that someone loves something, it shows in the work. And those are the campaigns that I back. I back books where I can tell that people really love what they're doing. And sometimes you talk to somebody and you can kind of get a feel for, I'm getting my feet wet. I'm not totally in love with this idea yet. But most of the time, when it's a creator-owned character, when it's something that you put work into, when you put heart into, you can definitely feel the fact that this is something that someone loved and they want you to love too. They're presenting the best version of this.
Right.
They're not scratching a comic out to make a buck this month to scratch another one out next month.
Yeah. You can always tell when a creator is half-assing it, or has run out of ideas, or is just squeezing something, like you said, squeezing something out to get a paycheck that month, or a filler issue.
Right.
I hated nothing more back in the day than when you'd be collecting a book and you'd have a real good run going, and then they would throw in another writer and artist as a filler because that the writer or artist or somebody fell behind. But you gotta, for me at least, I know I haven't mastered my craft, if you will, but I'm really trying to put my heart and soul into it. And that's why, like I said, with so many, rewrites of the scripts and everything and changes and everything, I really want these books to come across. And aside from entertaining people, I want people to be able to tell that I do love these characters and I am, in this for the long haul. I mean, I got 3 issues on this campaign. I've got at least 5 more issues after this in some state of completion right now. I've got my 3-issue miniseries going. So, I mean, I want Tales from Neroesville to be around for a while. I want people to be picking it up and looking for it.
Right. Well, and I think that you've already you've got an outlashing of support already. I know it can be. I think it can be disheartening for smaller creators who don't necessarily have that big push from the larger creator or whatever, or they don't have that steady stream of momentum, and it sucks. It really does. I feel like everybody should have the same amount of spotlight, but that's just not how the world works. I think you and
Yeah.
I and everyone watching this can understand that. But at the same time, I don't think that it's six figures that tells you you've got a great book. It's six figures that tells you have a massive audience. And, like us, we don't have 100,000 followers. We don't have, 5,000 live viewers throwing $100 of super chats at us. We just love comic books. And I think that in the grand scheme of things will be what pushes this indie comics thing over the hump.
And that's kind of my issue, is that I spent the last couple years creating books and making sure that I had enough content and the right talent and the right people in the books getting these books done, rather than building that online following. So now now I'm a little behind the eight ball with that, so I've got to start trying to build that up while creating comics.
Right. So you do have a video here.
Oh God, don't watch the video.
Don't watch the video. Okay, we won't watch the video. We won't watch
the videos are fine.
No, I have to.
There's two different videos on there. One explaining Knuckle Supper Studios, and one going through the books. They're fine.
Okay.
They're a little long, and
okay.
and the audio is slightly better than Ayrton's phone.
All right. All right.
But I mean, you're more
Brutal
welcome to
honesty
play them.
here.
They're just a little long. Yeah.
Well, you
Brutal
got that
honesty
going
here.
for you, at least.
We'll leave them for the audience to decide whether or not they want to watch them. They're available on the Indiegogo campaign. I was trying to get to a full shot of the characters on the front page of the campaign is what I really wanted out of everything. But you have one on there that looks like the Union Jack Daredevil. So, do you know who that is yet? Have you fleshed that character out yet? Because I've got to know.
The Daredevil with the stars and bars. Yeah,
Yes.
That's Reb Devil, or EB, Reb Devil.
Okay. All right.
And yeah, he's got a history, and there's a reason he's wearing that suit, and it's not the reason most people are going to think. But yeah, he's got a full story. He's one of the ones that's in the back of my head. I haven't actually started scripting his story out yet.
I just really want to hear him say 1776 was a mistake.
Oh no, that's not the Union Jack. That's the Confederate flag.
Oh, that's the stars and bars, is it?
That's the stars and bars. Yep.
Oh Lord, I disavow the Red Devil.
Can I avow the Red Devil?
You can do whatever you want, sir. I'll just fire you after the show. It'll be fine.
Since when do you fire me after the show?
Oh, every time we get off the Skype call.
Now,
But
here's
go ahead, Aaron.
something I've been thinking about. Basically, we have this whole new online medium of podcasts with like long form interviews that's kind of replacing television. Like that. We think maybe this Indiegogo crowdfunding source of comic books might eventually start to replace the old format of how comic books are created and distributed.
Yeah, I mean, I could absolutely see that happening. It would just have to get to a point where the books were, like I said, delivered a little more regularly and a little more promptly, I think.
Right.
I don't think the delays and stuff that creators can sustain that, but I could absolutely see this, crowdfunding being the new wave of how people get their books. Especially my initial plan, the reason I released 3 issues on this in individual floppies is I wanted to run 2 campaigns a year so that I would be putting 6 issues out a year. So I wanted to get
a
6
bi-monthly
issues.
schedule.
Right. But, the campaign is struggling a little, so I may have to push that back a little bit, spread them out a little bit more. But if I can pick up some momentum, that's the plan. And I mean, like you said, you've got projects, you can understand that it's a lot of work and commitment to put even just 6 issues out a year. That's a, bi-monthly schedule.
Oh, absolutely.
Is still rough.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's nothing to scoff at. Like, there's a reason the industry has moved to the practices it does. And most of the industry at this point is using every shortcut in the book they can on their art and still have problems with making deadlines.
Right.
When it comes to somebody like an Ethan Van Sciver or Doug DeNapel or Richard Meyer having a delay, it's always acceptable. I mean, even in the mainstream, it's always acceptable for the simple fact, at least to me. I'm a grown man. I work a full-time job just like these guys do, just not drawing comic books. A couple of days out of the year, I don't go into work because I'm not feeling it one way or another. A couple of days out of the year, there's something that comes up and the power's out, or a tire is blown, or basically it's the long and short of saying shit happens. I think and I actually do kind of have a counterpoint to what you said about the sustainability of it. Not that I would ever want the idea of monthly comics to go away, but I think that one thing that crowdfunding has shown us is that people will accept a medium that deals in trades rather than floppies. And I think that revelation is a lot more telling than the idea that what people will pay, because I think that's a short-term model. I think eventually the wallets will start to empty out and people will be like, I can't back, $15, $20, $35, $40 books a year. I need something a little more affordable, and other options will be looked into. Like, I fully anticipate to see individual issues of some of these trades eventually coming out in a more, a better format. I really, the end-all be-all of what I see coming out of Comicsgate, what I'd love to see, rather, is kind of these indie creators basically forming a comics union, so to speak, and basically creating another system of distribution for their work, because that's the end plan to everything, isn't it? They always say, if you don't like what we're saying, well, just build your own social media, build your own internet, build your own company. And that's what these guys are done. They're drawing their own comics, and eventually they'll need their own distributing too. And I think they'll have it. Peter Samedi already does all of his distributing for Alterna. Diamond still distributes for them, I think, but he'll ship you out Alterna just as easily as you can order it from Diamond, and I think it's cheaper.
Yeah, and I would love to submit my books and have Pete take care of that end of it. If it was something he wanted to run with,
right.
And that was one of the things at the beginning of this campaign that I kicked around was, do I do these issues as floppies? Do I do them as a trade? And I didn't do it. I went to Wizard World Philly this year. I go every year with my daughter. It's our annual trip. Okay. And there were a bunch of indie guys there that were still putting out floppies, and most of them had a deal, whether the books were $3, $5, $6 cover prices. Well, hey, if you want to buy all 3 issues or all 4 issues, you get them for this. So that was one of the things I wanted to do, was to be able to have 3 issues, because they have a $250 cover price, so it'd be $750 for the 3 issues. I'm offering them for $6. I can do that at conventions as well, and that's one of the things that's a little disheartening. Is I'm looking at some of these books on Indiegogo that are getting funded, and the campaigns are running a little more successful than mine, where they've got a lower page count than me, and they're selling these books for $25.
Right.
So the lower price point might actually be doing me more harm than good. But
I'd hate.
I'm sticking with it for now.
Well, I hate to think that, though, because that is disheartening to think about. But I don't think that it's I don't think that it's the lower price point. I just think we need to get it out there a little more. But that's just me. I don't know anything about crowdfunding. I've never done it. I'm not an expert. Don't take that to the bank.
I-
I'm not throwing shade.
I've had no. I say that because I've had other guys who have run or are running successful crowdfunding, and their argument is the more you charge for a book, the more faith it shows you have in your product. I'm like,
That
well,
could be
I
a
don't
thing,
believe
yeah.
that to be the case, but I think my books are great. Like I think I'm putting out quality books,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Maybe I'm
You
just
just-
old. I want to give people good reads for a good price.
Right, and I think that one thing that people aren't thinking about, and again, this isn't criticism, this is just me thinking about something on the side, and I'm saying that for people who may listen in the future, or if this ever gets clipped out and sent to somebody. I'm not throwing shade at anybody's practices. I'm not a creator. Y'all do you. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm just here to buy good stuff. But one thing that I worry about is I get the idea of the exclusivity of it. But the books that I'm interested in paying that much money for, they're put together in a way that they would cost that much on a shelf anyway, and they were already good.
Yeah.
It would cost me $100 to get Earthworm Jim Volume 1 for the what you call from a store. Like if you ordered it to a comic store and it came hardbound with gold leaf on it, and 140 something pages, 160 something pages, whatever, it would cost over $100. There's no way you would get that book for $40 at a comic store. I mean,
No.
The Dark Knight
And
Returns is about that big. It was a little bigger than that, and it cost like $50 30 years ago.
Yeah. And Doug TenNaples' books are amazing. I got Bigfoot Bill, and
Okay.
like just the approach that he took. His books are gorgeous, and they're worth every penny for what I paid for them.
A Cyber Frog, same thing. It's just chromium cover, 80 plus pages. You get trading cards with it. You get stickers with it. You get all this stuff with it. There's no way you would get that book for $30 at a comic shop. I mean, if it was part of a trade or something like that, or if it was part of a 6-issue miniseries that got put together in a trade, maybe it would be $20-25. But
Yeah.
as a standalone story, no, you wouldn't get that book for under $30-40. So, same thing with Monster MD, same thing, like most of these books are
pretty much
Yeah.
every book we've looked at on the show so far.
right. There's a couple that are smaller in page count, and they do have a higher price tag. I'm not, and this is no slight to those creators, but I'm not as inclined to buy those because it's a cost effectiveness thing. Like, I get it, and I want to support great creators, and I still do. But I have to look at my $40-50 and say, okay, am I going to spend this and get 30 minutes of entertainment out of it and put it in a bag and put it in my closet in my bags and boards and never look at it again for 6 months to a year? It's not a video game. It's not it's not something that I can spend a long time reading. So, and it's not something I can put on my shelf even and display and see every day and remind myself, hey, I might want to read that again, to look through it. I'm not even going to see it to think about loaning it out because it's in a cardboard box in my closet with the rest of my comic books.
Yeah.
So, a $3 price tag is essentially, well, not, yeah, it's about $3.50, $4 is what it breaks down to for $11 for 3 physical issues. It makes sense. I'm going to get 3 floppies. I'm going to like them. I'm probably going to want to read them over and over again, especially as more come out. But I'm not paying an arm and a leg for them, and I'm getting basically 10 minutes of entertainment for every dollar I spend. Where do you go wrong with that? I mean,
Yeah.
That's better than some mobile games can offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, really, you're basically the alternative Indiegogo right now.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think more people should, and this is just my personal opinion, I think more people should take that on board and be really encouraged by that. I don't expect people to subside themselves to your model, but I want your model to succeed because I think that comic price is one of the biggest hindrances of the market right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really the fact that you had this written and pretty much done before you even released the campaign, and that you're basically just using this to fund the printing and to get it out to people.
Get funding for the next set of books. Don't forget.
That's really, if the crowdfunding models is to replace the old model of the industry, that's really the way you want to do it, I would think. I can't really think of a better way.
Yeah. Well, and I spent a lot of years in sales and customer service, so that is always in the back of my mind is taking care of the customer and keeping them coming back.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I definitely, that's definitely visible in the way you've set it up. Not that anybody else isn't looking at customer service. That's what the whole indie comics and CG movement was supposed to be about in the first place, was customer service. And I really feel like that this campaign really embodies that. So I do want to encourage everybody watching, everybody who will be watching in the future, go out, share, consider backing it. Even if it's just as little as $1 or $2, make up a funny name to get written in the back of the comic.
Jack package.
Yeah.
Just, it's something worth supporting. And obviously, as always, I would encourage my people to, do what they feel is right with their money because it is their money. But this is definitely one that I enjoyed. And this is a creator that I would definitely say has a plan. May not be a good one. It may not work out, but he has a plan, which is more than I can say. Where's my paper at? That's the closest I got to a plan, folks. Shake the paper around to make it sound like I got something. But it does sound like you've got something in your mind for something bigger and better, and I definitely can't wait to see where that goes. And just from the the start page of your Indiegogo, let me get that pulled back up on the screen. Just from that crowd shot, I mean, you've got what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 18, well over 25 characters on this spread here. And
I think there's 28 so far. My goal was to have 30 on there. I'm not done with that yet.
Right. And I would say that you've at least fleshed out the idea for everybody on here, I'm guessing.
For those characters, yeah.
So,
please tell me you have at least like a one-shot, like backstory to, was it Brouhaha, the crazy one in the straitjacket?
Oh yeah, I've got an idea. It's going to be a little team up between him and Happy Jack, the character dead center of the pin up there.
Yeah.
There's a little team up in mind for them that is going to be Brouhaha centric. It's gonna delve more into him. There is so many layers to that crazy little son of a bitch that I want to show people.
That's fantastic.
He seems like a great character, like in the little bit, that we got to see of him.
Right.
Yeah. He's definitely a character that I'm going to have fun, and I will probably laugh while I'm writing the story more than people will actually laugh when they read it. But yeah, I love that guy.
I don't know, definitely let me know when that one's coming out, because he's probably the character I'm most interested in.
Oh. Well, why would he need to let you know? You should definitely be backing all of the campaigns so that you get them all and you definitely don't miss it. Aha.
Wow. Let me know when it's coming, so I can make sure I get in there like nice and early. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll be blasting all the social medias when the next ones come due.
Well, definitely keep pushing. I think that this can definitely get up, and you can at least get closer to your goal. I think your next stretch goal is, you said, $37 away, so that's $750 is the next stretch goal, which adds 10 pages, you said?
The 750 adds a 5-pager, and the
Okay.
$1,000 adds a 10-pager.
Okay. Still, I mean, the fact that you're already off the top, you're getting 64 pages, and you've got the potential for $300 to add 15 more pages to that, I think it's well worth it. So everyone should check this out and definitely look into funding it, because we'd be on here all night, and I could ask you probably a million questions about all of these guys, but I won't do that to you tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
One thing that we normally do on our show that we haven't been able to do since we've been having guests on is something called This Week in Comics, where we talk about news and reviews and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to see if we could, encapsulate that a little bit and ask if there's anything that's been going on in the actual comic industry that you've been interested in, or as an indie creator, have you become disenfranchised with the industry as a whole?
I have become pretty disenfranchised with it. The only thing I buy at all right now are Spider-Man books. Like I said, I've got almost a complete run of Amazing. I still buy everything Spider-Man that comes out. Honestly, I haven't actually read them in I don't know how long. But
just a compulsion at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about your comics in your closet. I've got probably about 170 short boxes full of comics.
Oof.
To the point, yeah, I had to rent a storage unit.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, you got me beat.
You a run for your money there, Church.
Oh, he's not giving me a run. I'm still pacing. Like, I buy what I want to buy.
Yeah. Yeah, years ago, my first wife and I had an insurance agent come out to our house. We were talking life insurance and getting all that set up, and I spoke to him about getting an insurance policy for the comics, and we talked about putting them on the homeowners, and we realized that the comics were actually worth more than my house at the time. He's like, "Oh no, you're going to need to find a specialist, somebody that specializes in this sort of policy."
Yeah.
So yeah. The current market, I'm not really up on. I mean,
okay.
I will discuss it with you guys here, but yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of input on that.
Well, you made mention earlier about artists not really signing on to do long runs or to really commit to a storyline or a run. And the first name that popped into my head, obviously, because I have a fangirl crush on him, apparently, as much as I talk about him, Jonathan Hickman. Hickman's fantastic.
My head too.
Yeah, Hickman's Fantastic Four and Avengers run through the 2010s, leading up to the Secret Wars. His ability to do world building, and now his embarking on reestablishing the X-Men as a serious comic book after the last 2 or 3 years of them being treated like crap. I would say him and J. Michael Straczynski. Straczynski did some amazing stuff with Thor. So
yeah. Most of the news that I get now is from watching, different YouTubers and blog posts or whatever you want to call it at this point. So I have heard a lot of good things about Hickman. If anything is going to get me to start picking up X-Men again, it's going to be all the all
really
the buzz
should.
around it.
His X-Men run has been really great so far. So
yeah, I might have to check that out because I've been hearing a lot of that.
Yeah, they just released the second printing, I believe, of House of X issue 1 this week or last week, something like that.
Yeah, so, it's the only current book that I'm buying right now as well. Well, I take that back. I've been buying Daredevil. No Devils, Only God, or No Gods, Only Devils, something like that. I haven't read it yet because I'm waiting for the miniseries to come to an end. But it looked really good from the reviews I saw of it, and I had to pick it up. But no, when I heard Hickman was taking a swing at the X-Men, I was like, oh, thank God. Because the X-Men Color series, I hope is memory hold very quickly. I did not like it. X-Men Gold, Blue, Red, Black.
Yeah, and I would love to start reading Daredevil again. I'd love to start reading X-Men, Batman. Those were big for me back in the 80s and 90s as well. And to just every time I would pick them up in, recent years, they just weren't good. The characters just didn't ring true to me, to the characters that I grew up on. So if someone is going to pick them up and, it's going to be well written with good art, I would certainly start reading them again.
Well, I think one problem you're going to have, and this is just a historian in me, but one issue you're going to have is Daredevil and the Batman you read was Frank Miller's, and
Yeah.
you're never going to get that again. I'm sorry to say, but that man's genius seemed to have gone the way of the cuckoo.
Well, yeah, my absolute favorite Batman was the was it Mike Barr, and it was drawn by Davis and Neary.
Okay.
I mean, those books were just gorgeous back in the 80s, and they were his approach to writing Batman and Robin, where Batman was, the stiff, stoic, vengeance of the night, and then Robin was just a kind of a goofy teenager. That was back before Batman had to be all grim and gritty and everything all the time, and they were great books, and that's, I don't know, those books, just, you don't see those today, and I don't know that I'll ever see something like that again, unfortunately.
I don't want to keep stepping on air, and I feel like you keep trying to talk, and I keep cutting him off. You got anything, buddy?
Oh, I was gonna sarcastically say that Adam West was my favorite Batman.
Oh, okay. All right.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Yeah, whenever anybody talks about that series, that's all I picture is him running with that bomb over his head.
I see him with the shark repellent sprayer, but that's just me.
Got on the ladder to the helicopter.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, I'm right there with you. One of the series that I talk about a little bit. We haven't talked about it on the show yet, but I mention it pretty much every week. Is ROM Space Knight, because that's the crown jewel of my collection. I have a full run of ROM Space Knight in readable condition. But
See, Rom is one of those books I hear people like you talk about, and back in the day, I thought it was just the silliest looking character, and I assumed incorrectly at the time it was based on like a toy line or something. I had no idea what Rom was about, but now I hear so many people talking about what a great book it was. That is something that I would love to go pick up.
Yeah, it is fantastic. I think IDW has the rights to the character, so it may be hard to find like reprinted collections of it, but they might be putting one out. I've heard that IDW has picked up. Well, I know that IDW has picked up. Usagi Yojimbo, and they're putting out the collections of that. So they may be putting out the old Marvel collections of the IDW stuff. I don't know, or the ROM Space Knight, but I doubt it. But the book is fantastic. That was one of the first series that I started like putting together piece by piece. Because when I started collecting comics, I started collecting heavily again when my father passed away. And I inherited his old collection, which was like 2 long boxes. I had sold my comics off long ago, like a bad teenager does. And, I started picking through the collection that my mom brought over. And it was, and I saw a couple of my old ROM books in there from when I was, living with him still. I looked at them and I was like, I haven't seen these in years. So man, I started going to different, and like clockwork, there's my 2-year-old.
Was it
But
11:30? Almost.
almost 6 minutes. She's early. But I started going from different comic store to different comic store, digging through their back issue bins, looking around online, talking to people in Facebook groups, just trying to put that collection together and find a full set of that in readable condition that wasn't just falling apart at the Staples. And
Yeah.
that kind of reinvigorated my passion for the hobby. So I just started, engulfing as much as I could. I read through the first 10 years of the Legion of Superheroes and, gained a new respect for those guys because you want to talk about a team book that makes no goddamn sense, read early Legion. There are name and costume and power changes, and you have no fucking clue what's going on for like 10 or 15 issues, and then everything snaps back to the way it was before the changes. Oh, Christ.
Yeah. That was
because
one of the nice things about getting in. I got into comics in 1984 thanks to G.I. Joe the G.I. Joe cartoon was what
Okay.
actually got me into comics because they ran a ad for the Marvel Comics G.I. Joe number 24 during the cartoon one day. And, I went and told my mom, like, I got to find a comic book store. There's a G.I. Joe cartoon or a G.I. Joe comic book. And she's like, I know where there's a comic book store. We can go this weekend. So I went, and that was what brought me into comics.
Mhm.
And that was 84. So, like, I was finding back then the books were getting expensive, but they weren't crazy. Like, at the time, you could get a relatively near mint copy of Amazing Fantasy number 15 for $1,500.
Yeah.
I bought, because then when I discovered Spider-Man, Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, had been coming out for a while. Well, somebody had just sold his whole set. So my comic store had I think it was I want to say like the first 50 issues all bagged up together. I bought that whole set for I think $100. I got the Marvel premiere with the first Spider-Woman in it and the entire set of 50 issues of Spider-Woman all combined for $25. So
Nice.
that's why my collection is so out of control because I could just go buy a whole set or a whole run for next to nothing. I worked at the comic book store. That was my first job when I was 14.
Yep.
And I didn't bring a penny. I didn't bring a penny home from that job.
Oh no,
Everything I made
absolutely
went
not.
right back into the register.
No, that's pretty much how my stint at the comic book store goes. Everything I made there when I was working there part time, it was just like, yeah, I had this long box, and I would just say, how much did I make this week? And he'd give me a number, and I'd just flip through and say, will that cover this?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I put together my set of Age of Apocalypse. That's how I put together part of my set of ROM, because part of it I found in like 3 other states. Every time I'd go somewhere, I'd seek out comic book stores back when they were still around. Now they're dropping like flies.
Yeah. Yeah, back in the day, me and my buddies, we would do a weekend road trip. Like on Saturday, there was that like advertisements for comic stores in comic books and stuff. And like, well, hell, let's drive to Delaware and check out this comic book store. Let's drive 2 hours west of here and see what's over there.
Chronic the Hemp Hog. I see that in the chat there. That's fantastic. Who's the Asian hemp pilot? That's Tumbleweeder. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a natural gift for tumbling skills, and he has found that when he is on a substance, it lowers his inhibitions and makes him that much more acrobatic and flexible and everything. So, yeah, so before a battle, he's going to have to toke up and get himself, get his zen on before he goes in.
All right. So he's going to have yeah. I have the vape pen ready to go. Good.
Yeah.
Oh man, but no. So we've talked about your inspirations. We've talked about what you read growing up, and one other thing from this week that I saw. you said you used to read Batman. The Batman and Robin is definitely in your wheelhouse. Have you heard what they're doing to Tim Drake Robin? The Red Robin is no longer Red Robin. He is Sparrow.
Well, the last time I read Batman, he was the Red Hood, so I haven't really been up on that.
Wasn't that Jason Todd?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Who were you speaking about?
Tim Drake, the Red Robin.
Oh, Tim Drake. No, I'm sorry. I didn't see what they did to him, so he's the Sparrow now?
Yeah, and he's in like this brown and gold and orange and black costume. Like, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out that we've done a show on the Amalgam Universe. Were you around for that? Were you still picking books up? Was that not great comics?
Yeah, that was fun. I remember Spider Boy and what was it, Dark Claw?
Yep.
Was that the Batman Wolverine combo?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
The
More
strong
shit insanity.
Yeah, the strong third for us was the Iron Lantern.
Yeah.
But no, Sparrow was the name of the character that Jubilee and Robin became.
Oh. I don't remember that one.
Yeah. So I believe Tim Drake's already been Sparrow at one point. Because 96 Robin would have been Tim Drake, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, they killed off Jason Todd long before that.
Right, Nightwing had already gone out on his own, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, Jason Todd was... Jason Todd's already been a Sparrow in some capacity, but they just kind of went back to that well and did it in an awful costume. When I first saw the costume, I honestly thought that they had been calling him Pharaoh, like the Egyptian, but that's just me being Southern. No, I don't know what they're trying to do. Like, Red Robin has a history, has a presence. It's a Robin that grows up to buy Batman and join Superman in Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really think that they're thinking anything through. I think that Marvel and DC are both kind of in panic mode as far as the comics industry goes. Because even though they base their sales on diamond sales rather than comics that get into the actual hands of comic book readers, they're definitely seeing their numbers go down. Like, there's no way they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, they're confusing units sold with units shipped. And that's all they care about. And plenty of people have made it clear what the actual problem and issue is with the current comic books. And, you know, they're just digging their feet in and refusing to listen. And we all know what's wrong with comic books these days.
Well, yeah. I think...
Female Thor.
Yeah, I think Comic Artist Pro Secrets has made a video or a stream about it today. They even are... I think they're trying to push Peter Parker as a bisexual now and as an avid collector of Spider-Man. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, Jesus. Really?
This might be the F-bomb I need to drop.
I gave you permission before the show started.
Spider-Man is not fucking gay.
Yeah.
Peter Parker is not gay. He's never been gay. He never will be gay. I mean, if you had Gwen Stacy, Felicia Hardy, and Mary Jane Watson, and you still turned out gay or bi,
that's on you, bro.
No, he's not gay. Yeah, if you want to have a gay Spider-Man, introduce a new one. Make what's his name?
Miles Morales.
I can't think of. Yeah, make Miles a little bi-curious.
And that's what I was going to say. That
he's
would be
already biracial. So why not?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It would be perfectly acceptable in that regard. And I don't think that it's because, you know, people like you or I or Ayrton. I don't think, you know, there's anyone who would say, well, I'm sure there are people who would say it, but I don't think anyone in any of our personal lives would say that we hated homosexuality or that we were anti-homosexual. I think that it's because we
just that use the word for a British cigarette a lot.
I think that by the way, Ayrton,
Yeah, yes. Yes.
you're fired, buddy.
Yeah.
But no, I think that the big problem is that people like you and I have grown up with Spider-Man. And we've grown up with Spider-Man being married, having children, having multiple girlfriends, never having a boyfriend. And if Spider-Man was going to be gay, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby would have, or Stan Lee and Steve Ditko would have created him as gay.
Yeah.
Like they would have had no problem making him a gay man.
Well, and for them to even consider making him gay or bi, I mean, are they basing this on the resounding success they've had with Gay Iceman? Like that went over like a lead balloon. Like, what is their thought process? Maybe we didn't choose a big enough hero or a popular enough character.
Someone, Mrs. Church, before the show actually brought up the idea that maybe it's because Tom Holland is potentially gay or bisexual, and they're pushing it. I don't know. I don't care. Not something I look for. Like that's the thing. Like as a normal human being, I see somebody new's playing Spider-Man. Oh, his name's Tom Holland. He looks like he's 15. Good casting.
Yeah.
Let's move along. I don't need to dig to find out, who he takes to take to bed. I don't need to tell him about it either. That's not what we open. We don't. At what point during this interview did I ask you about your sexual preferences?
Right before we went on the air.
Oh well, yeah, but that was for personal reasons, Jason. Jesus. Like DMs, you don't leak that.
Yeah, it's not like he came out and said like, you're not a poofta, are you, mate?
Yeah.
We're not in Australia.
But it's not something that I, as a normal human being, care about. I don't need to read about it. I don't need to see it in my entertainment. And it's not. And I like to think that I would feel that way regardless of how I, was oriented. Unless there's some magical thing about being of another, sexual orientation than mine that says, oh, well, I definitely need to know now.
Yeah, and
Right.
I was reading, comics and Alpha Flight back in the day when North Star came out, and it really wasn't a big deal. It didn't really pull the carpet out from anybody because he'd been around for a while, but he wasn't like a super popular, super, fleshed out character. So when he came out as gay, who cares? But
right, and he was also never always being hung on by very attractive Frank Cho type females.
Right.
Which, and I do blame Mary Jane Moss and Jean Grey and those characters for my interest in redheads.
Oh yeah, well that's just common sense. Well, you got enough. You look like you're an Irish boy like me, so yeah, there's definitely the redhead thing going on there.
Well,
redhead.
yes, Scott's Irish.
The soon-to-be minority in comics.
Oh yeah.
They're replacing the redheads.
You're gonna wake up one morning and be black.
That's right. That's right.
We're gonna start seeing signs like "Irish need not apply" on the front of comic books.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Go back to 1927.
Yeah. Wait, does that mean that having some Italian in me gives me the upper hand? Do I get to go back to the boats and make fun of you guys?
Yeah.
And you get to call people Frito.
Okay. All right. Fredo. Call him Fredo.
Frito, whatever.
Yeah. You missed it.
I haven't actually seen The Godfather. I've just seen the story.
What? What?
I don't watch movies.
That's not a movie. That's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a guidebook, Ayrton. Watch the fucking movie.
If you do decide to watch The Godfather, start with the third one. It's the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it like Big Titty Sorority Tits Sluts 3? Is it the best one? You know?
It's absolute garbage. But the first two are good. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Start with the third one and then watch the first two, and it'll all make sense.
Yeah.
okay.
But I think that pretty much wraps it up for what we had. Well, what I had for questions. I don't know if Ayrton had any others. But I wanted to give you enough time to plug anything that you wanted to plug, and pull up the Indiegogo one more time, and then we can wrap it up and get the hell out of here. I think Nick Rackets is coming on in 20 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes, and I definitely don't want to be stepping on that guy's toes. He could sue me or something.
Yeah. Especially once he gets to drinking.
There you go.
I mean, there was one news story I wanted to bring up real quick.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you guys saw it. The police just caught a serial killer,
God.
guys. And when questioned about his motives, the killer said, like, well, after I killed the first one, I just had to kill another and another. It was, kind of like the dominoes effect.
See, we missed half of the joke, so I'm pretty sure that was the punchline, but...
Damn it!
There was a gap of static in the middle there.
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right. So, dominoes effect. So, I'm guessing there was a pizza reference in there?
Yes. Guy
Yeah.
killed multiple pizza men, or pizza delivery guys.
Okay, the dominoes
It's not,
effect.
it's
I
not
get
the
it.
same now. I can't go back.
No.
I can't go back and re-say it.
Yeah.
No, I know. That's why I'm doing this to you, because it's funny to me. But he does this to me every show, and I'm just like, man, these jokes. You're the reason we can't get subscribers, Ayrton. God damn it.
Hey, every now and then I catch you off guard and you think I'm talking about something serious.
As soon as you said that serial killer, and I was like, son of a bitch. I immediately knew what was coming. I was like, no. But yeah, I'll go ahead and pull the Indiegogo up. Well, you got anything else to plug? Do you do any of the YouTubes or anything like that?
I am starting. I have a YouTube channel, obviously, because you have to have a YouTube channel to post your videos and drag them over to the Indiegogo. I do have a YouTube channel. It's not got a whole lot of content on it. I just posted my first campaign video on there. It's just Knuckle Supper Studios. If anyone wants to check it out.
Okay, we'll put the link in the description after the show.
Yeah, I just started right now. I'm actually chronicling my Indiegogo, and I've started. The first episode that's up features the story of what got me into comics. The second episode is going to be what caused me to create Happy Jack in Neroesville, and then from there I'm going to talk about the Indiegogo decisions that I made. What worked, what didn't. Try and help other people that are getting ready to launch one from making some of the same mistakes I did.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely interesting, and it's definitely something I think a lot of people need. These larger creators are doing a really big service of, kind of getting people started, I think, but there definitely does need to be kind of the voice of reason to come in and speak for smaller creators who might be having a hard time to kind of, point them in the right direction and be like, you might be fucking yourself over a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've reached out to EVS, and, haven't heard back. So like you certainly can't go into this, whether you're, even if you're CG, you can't go in expecting to get on Ethan's show. And even with that, like some of the guys that I've seen on his show recently, they're not pulling in those big numbers anymore. I mean, he would have people on his show and the numbers would, skyrocket overnight.
Right.
I mean, they're obviously their backers and their campaigns make more money and everything, but it's not like it was. So you certainly can't go in with that in mind that you're going to get on Ethan's show and make $20,000.
Right. And one thing that I think that a lot of people really undervalue, and it's something that I think, most of the guys that accept super chats and read them out have no problem with you plugging your Indiegogo through a super chat. I've seen people do it on Nick Ricada's show. I've seen people do it on EVS's show. I don't,
Well, can I tell the story about my super chat with Ethan and the title of my book?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I did a super chat on one of Ethan's show and just said, please back Tales from Neroesville on Indiegogo, and he kind of stumbled over it when he was reading it, and I didn't really put it together. And he said every time he said that title, I always think it's something else. And Antonio just happened to be on the show, and he goes, "Yeah, it's real close to Neroesville." And that was when I realized that the title of my book is one letter off from being Tales from Neroesville.
And that is not at all the intention, from what I'm to understand. Is that correct?
Thought never crossed my mind. It just rhymes with hero.
See, but you could come out with that book and write it about like the Detroit riots in the '60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would go over so well. We definitely wouldn't be in the Daily Stormer for that.
They came out with a movie about the Detroit riots, so why not a comic book?
Yes, but it wasn't called Neroesville, Ayrton. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I'll be that guy on Twitter going, "It's okay, I have black friends." Doesn't work.
Well, I definitely, I never saw that either. Like, I saw it, and it, it looked a little weird to me, so I did want the introduction to it. But as soon as you said, somebody had scrawled an H over it and called it Heroesville, that made perfect sense to me. I don't know what other letter you would put there that would work for you to scrawl an H over, and just calling it Heroesville with a nice pretty sign doesn't show that people are disenfranchised with the idea of heroes. Real quick, that actually gives me a very reminiscent feeling from Image days, because the average man on the street in an Image comic was disenfranchised with the idea of heroes and villains walking amongst them, because they were, just a menace. They were destroying the land and property value and all that good stuff. So nobody...
Yeah, and that's...
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things, like, every day, like, I have a whole backstory for this and stuff, but, like, every day more people enter Neroesville, more people move to Neroesville than leave, so the population's going up. A lot of them are moving there with stars in their eyes, hoping to see or meet heroes and all that, and then they get there and realize that the heroes, like you said, property damage and all that, and not even just that sort of thing, just screwing up traffic, making it, taking 3 hours to get home from work because you're stuck in traffic because, some supervillain,
blew up the highway,
tore up a gas main or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's definitely something that's going to be addressed in the book at some point, is that while it's neat seeing people flying over your head, there's also plenty of downsides to it.
Well, that would, and this is just a throwaway idea, but that would give you kind of an out to introduce your version of, like, damage control.
Yeah.
Because I've always thought that was an interesting concept for me. Are you familiar with damage control, Ayrton?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they're the guys that, for everybody in the chat, they're the guys that just clean up the superhero battlegrounds. They repair the property damage, they fix the roads and all that. And there have been a couple of independent stories from the eyes of those construction workers, and those are some of the most fun stories you'll ever read.
Yeah, that was an interesting concept. Was that mid-90s that they did that?
Late 80s, mid-90s. They've popped up a few times.
Yeah.
Because I think DC has an equivalent to it, but I don't remember what the name of it was.
Okay.
But
Control of the Dam.
God, I hate you so much.
Can I fire him?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Guest can always fire the co-host. Anyway, I definitely appreciate you coming on. I will say goodbye to the chat and say goodbye privately with you. But before I do, check out Tales from Neroesville. Like I said, you will not beat $11 for 3 books shipped to your place of residence. If you know somebody that might make a good gift, if you want to just share this around, if you have the ability to just make a small contribution, get your name in the book. Definitely do any and all of those things that you are within the ability to and want to do. So
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it and the kind words.
Anytime, man. And we definitely appreciate you coming on and talking with us about obscure things and pivoting off into every different topic we could possibly pull out of our rears.
Yeah, I will lead you down or follow you down many a rabbit hole.
Hey, that's what we like on this show. It's supposed to be chill and comfy. No hard feelings, no hurt feelings, any of that good stuff. But again, thank you very much for coming on. And with that, I will tell you lovely people in the chat good night.
Good night, everybody.
All right.